and welcome to Raw Chocolate. I'm going to show you in this film how you can make raw chocolate for yourself. I also offer chocolate making workshops, and what I'd like to explain is the recipe I'm going to give you is a straightforward, simple one from which you can go into any manner of detail. And if people who do choose to come on my chocolate making workshops will discover all the other things that you can do. And this is simply the starting point. And bearing in mind that raw chocolate is so good for your health and it tastes good, so it's a win-win situation. Thank you. Welcome to raw chocolate making. Now, unlike the stuff that you buy in the shops, which is almost all cooked, raw chocolate is an entirely different thing. Because if you eat your normal chocolate with lots of sugar and soy lecithin and all sorts of rather dodgy ingredients, you're consuming something which fundamentally isn't good for you, and fundamentally just better to avoid if you can. And yet chocolate itself, the actual chocolate, is really medicinal. So there's a terminology which people use, they talk about cacao. So raw cacao is a name which is used to describe a product which is full of life, full of health, and full of really good healing properties. And that's what we're going to make today, this raw chocolate. So I have all the ingredients set up. This is the simplest way that I can show you how to make raw chocolate. So if you were to come and have a look, I'll show you what the ingredients are. So I'm going to start with this one. Now if you go on the internet, most of the internet sites that talk about making raw chocolate actually leave this one out. And I'm very surprised because I reckon it's an essential ingredient. This is the raw cacao butter. And to make a chocolate which is not going to be melting at room temperature, you really need to make sure that some of this, it's my main ingredient, is raw cacao butter. And all these ingredients are obtainable from Harvest Moon Superfoods, which you can get from the eBay shop. Very good prices, very good quality. So to that I'm going to add this, and this is the coconut oil. Now coconut oil deserves a whole film, a whole essay, a whole book on it. There are so many health-giving properties associated with coconut oil, it's just fantastic stuff. So we've got two oily components which are really valuable, health-giving. And this one is the raw cacao powder, and this is the one that looks and smells and tastes like chocolate. So those three ingredients would make you a raw chocolate. However, to make it taste nice, what you want to do is you want to get yourself a good quality honey. This is a nice raw honey which I've obtained from a local beekeepers. And that's actually all that we're going to put into this chocolate, just those four ingredients, to keep things as simple as possible and give a really good result. So now to the equipment. We create something called a bain-marie. Now you can go online and you can buy bain-marie, but if you don't want, you're going to do it simply, you can do what I've done. So I've got myself a saucepan with some hot water in it. And what I do is I find a saucepan which fits inside it. Bingo! I am now set up, I can now make raw chocolate. That's actually what I need. Now most of the recipes on the internet use a variety of different measuring methods, from cups to spoons to grams. So what I'm going to do for this is I'm going to keep it the same all the way through. I'm going to measure everything in grams, and where possible I'm going to show you what it looks like in terms of a measuring tool such as a cup or whatever. Actually, I won't be using cups at all, I'm going to be using the dessert spoon. So everything's going to be measured in grams or dessert spoons. That's going to be the easiest way to do this for you. And when it comes to raw chocolate, it really is so helpful to get yourself the scales. This is just a small set of digital scales which you can buy very easily. You can pay between £10 and £30 for one of these. This will enable you to do all your chocolate measuring. And if you really do get into chocolate measuring, you're going to want to be able to measure ingredients accurately so that you can reproduce your good result when you get it just the way you want it. So let's make a start. So first of all I'm going to switch on the scales, throw on the glasses, and I'm going to start with 50 grams of the raw cacao butter. And here it is, very strange yellowish looking lumps. And there we are, that's just only a little bit too much. Just break a little piece off that. There we are, that's good enough. So the raw cacao butter simply goes into the bain-marie. And all I've got is hot water in the lower compartment and empty space in the upper compartment. As soon as I've got my 50 grams of my raw cacao butter, I then want to put that down because I'm ahead of myself, but get out my coconut oil, and I'm going to be using half the amount of coconut oil from what I use from the cacao butter. Here we go. Tiny bit more. Slightly too much. I want to get this as close as I can to my 25 grams. There we are, 25 grams. Lovely. So you can see that's like a heaped dessert spoonful, and that can go straight in there as well. Get the little bits and pieces out. And it's been in there a very short space of time, but already you can see things are starting to happen. The mixture is actually starting to liquefy, and that's what we're doing. And there's a special deal about making something raw. It has to not go above a certain temperature. So this gas is on the lowest possible setting, and just around about the time all that melts, I'm going to be doing a thing where I move it off the heat and put it back on, move off and put it back on. That's to make sure it doesn't overheat, and then that way it still gets classified as raw. So now my next ingredient, I'm using a different little container for this, and I tear it just to bring it back to 0. So this one, I'm going to be adding 25 grams of the cacao powder. And the way that works out is one heaped dessert spoon is going to give me around about 10, another one 20, so it's about 2.5 heaped dessert spoons approximately. Let's see. There we go. Right. So now I need to just take a little bit of time, because what I'm going to have to do is to wait until all of this is melted before I can add the cacao powder. Until I'm waiting, I'm getting my next really essential tool. It doesn't matter what shape it is, but you need some kind of a whisk, because as soon as you start to add the extra ingredients to this, it's going to be necessary to stir, and to stir frequently. Then the other thing that we're going to need is we're going to need some kind of a mould. Now what you can do is you can go and buy yourself a set of chocolate moulds like this, in which case that's all very straightforward and easy. These are silicone, very easy to use. However, supposing you just want to get on and make chocolate and you haven't got moulds, let's go and find you an alternative. And here's my alternative. It's an old humus pot. So you can use pretty much anything for the moulds, it really doesn't matter at all. Let me show you again how things are going. It's getting on, so it's melting very nicely. Then most of the cacao butter and all of the coconut oil has melted. Just give it a little bit longer. So while I'm waiting, I'm going to take my cacao powder off the scale, put yet another little device onto it, and I'm going to measure my honey. Now when I originally started, I started with 25 grams of honey, so let's recap. 50 grams of the cacao butter, 25 grams of coconut oil, 25 grams of cacao powder, and I started off with 25 grams of honey. And that was my first go, having done my research, and it didn't feel right. So I increased it to 37, and 37 feels just perfect, so here we go. And you can see it's really so easy if you've got a set of scales, because you can get your measurements as accurate as you like. There we go. So that means I've marshalled my final ingredients. Having another look, I can see there's a little bit of cacao butter which hasn't melted yet, so I'll just give it a little stir just to encourage it. And I'm down to 3 tiny fragments now, so within a few minutes that's going to be ready. So there we are, the cacao butter and the coconut oil is now completely melted. So it's time for me to add the next ingredient, which I do whilst whisking. So I literally just sprinkle the cacao powder and I stir at the same time. Being a left-handed person, I would normally do this the other way around. But, this is the way we're set up for this particular shot. So. I just love being left-handed, so let's do it this way. That's it. So now, I'm going to take it off the heat, and I can show you what it looks like. Didn't take me very long to add all that cow powder, did it? Very straightforward. So that's what it looks like now. Which means there's only one ingredient left to add, which is the honey. So it's just simply a matter of allowing the honey to go in whilst stirring. Now if the honey is warm, it obviously flows out of the container a little bit quicker. This kitchen I'm working is not particularly warm, so it's taking a little bit of time there. And then what I would do is I get hold of a spoon and just scrape the last bits out. So I've got as much of that honey as I can get into the dish, like that. And give it a final stir. So we've reached a really exciting point now. I'm going to put it back on the heat just for maybe half a minute while I rearrange myself over here. Because it's now time to actually pour the mixture into the moulds. It really is this simple, it really is this quick. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just literally pour, stop, and then stir again. The reason for this is that the ingredients have a tendency to separate out. So your greatest risk of the entire process is your ingredients separating out, and the taste is not going to be so nice because you're going to get a separate bitter and a separate sweet taste. So it's really worth taking the trouble of giving every single pour, give another little stir. And obviously it's up to you how full you fill your moulds. Oh, I'm a great lover of chocolate. Personally, I like my chocolate to be thin, so I do quite like the simple humus container. And I can pour that just to cover the bottom. That'll give me thin chocolate, which is my personal favourite. Carry on with the rest of it into the moulds. So one of the really joyful things about making raw chocolate is it's incredibly good medicinal food, very sustaining if you're outside in the cold, and you can come in at the end of your day and you can think, I'm going to fancy some chocolate lace this evening, and you can see that the equipment is actually pretty straightforward. There's not much in the way of equipment. Only 4 ingredients are involved. The whole thing takes me maybe 15 minutes. I'm going to turn the gas off now, and all I need to do now is to take the moulds and put them to a cold place, and the place you usually take them is to the fridge.